My name's Rob Airy, and I'm the director of the Wilhelmina Barnsgrave Trust, and I'm going to be talking about a Barnsgrave painting from the 1970s. This painting is called Warm Up, Cool Down, and was painted in 1979. It's from a series of works, a group of works she called the Meditation series. And the title gives an idea of why I chose this painting to talk about. So meditation has got two meanings, and I think in itself it's a very meditative picture, meaning that you can spend quite a long time looking at it. It's a very absorbing picture. You can stand quite close to it and look at the details and be absorbed by the subtle changes in colour, but when you stand back it has a different effect when all the colours start working together. It's also a painting which for Barnsgrave was, I think, a meditation on colour, and the painting is really about colour. So she's looking at colours, saturation, brightness, temperature, intensity, all the qualities of colour, and she was expressing that across this canvas. So this particular, there are other variations on this within this group. There's a dark red one, there's a black one with the colours of the spectrum through the middle, and there's one that has got lighter colours, greys and creams, punctuated by bits of colour. But this is very much about moving from dark, almost black blue on this side across the canvas to the very light blue, almost white on this side. But it's not just a basic gradation of blues. In the middle there's a lot of greens, and there's punctuations of these pinks and oranges and reds across it, sort of enliven the surface. In terms of the context of Barnsgrave's work, this was painted in the late 1970s, and from the earlier 15-20 years previously from that, she'd been working in a very geometric, abstract style, very hard-edged. In the 60s, she used squares, and in the early 70s, circles, really to bring about movement and energy across the surface. So the squares and circles will be dispersed across the canvas, their forms bring about movement. Here, this is very much just a grid. The shapes themselves don't bring about movement. This is much more about colour, and the change of colour across the surface is what brings about the movement. In the 1950s and early 60s, her abstraction was very much derived from the landscape, from looking at the glacier in Switzerland in the late 40s, or Cornish cliffs and rocks, to create paintings which weren't of places, but depicted places in a sort of abstract way. In the later 60s and into 70s, she became very much more a studio-based artist. There was no landscape influence really on her paintings at this time. However, this particular picture is quite interesting within the series. As we've seen, the other parts of this group, or paintings from this group, are in portrait format. But this painting is quite interesting. It has been displayed and reproduced quite often in portrait format, but there's evidence that Barnsgrave intended it to be shown in landscape format as we see it here. And I think that's perhaps because, unlike the other pictures in the series, this painting's colours are arguably more nature or landscape based. You can imagine one of her paintings of the glaciers from the late 50s actually including most of these colours. So I think her turning it on its landscape side perhaps hinted that she was thinking about the landscape. And actually in the 1980s, just following this group of work, landscape returned into a work after many years of it not being there. Although on your screens the squares of colour probably look very hard-edged and neat and solid blocks of colour, when you look closely, actually Barnsgrave she's painted each square very individually, and they're actually quite rough edged. There's overlaps of colour and paint marks and paint and scrabbling of the brush. So it's not quite as sort of mathematical and accurate in terms of painting as you might expect, which again I think adds to the subtlety and mystery of this meditative painting.